And I'm happy to be here this morning. And I'm grateful that we can share this space together at the times that we can. So, it's lovely. Well, last night we had a pretty awesome event here at the Journey Home space. Um, it was the launching of the first ever psychedelic society meeting in um, the Illinois Valley. So I'm hoping that this is going to lead to more events and more discussions of that nature here at the space. And there was a lot of good discussions that were brought up. We didn't have a whole lot of time to spend really digging in deep in any of the um, shares that were occurring. But I think over time we'll be able to do that in a more exploratory way. And one of the themes that sort of kept coming up through the night was about non-judgment. What that looks like to be met with non-judgment or to meet the world with non-judgment. And generally, anytime that anybody was sharing about this, they were sharing about their experience of being met with non-judgment by someone else. And the gift that was for them in that moment to be able to be seen not as a problem to be fixed and not as a picture perfect view of success, rather to be seen just simply as a person who is having an experience. I know that sounds really simplified, but I don't. I don't know that being more than that is being more helpful to understanding any moment. In some ways, the very simplified terms of just a person having an experience of being a person seems to be the most honest and accurate portrayal of any action or event that we could describe, right? Now, I think in some ways we have an aversion to that because our experiences are oftentimes so big for us. They're so monumental, they're sacred, they are a really big deal. But in the terms of not comparing ourselves to other things, then it really loses some of the foothold in being such a big deal. Um, it then becomes a lot more manageable when we can understand really how big we are internally. Then it doesn't seem so obtuse, right? The things that we experience, good or bad, desirable or undesirable, easy or difficult, whatever it is that we're experiencing, all of a sudden, it doesn't have to be such a large part of our overall experience. And maybe this is getting a little abstract and a little intellectual or heady. So I want to really be sure that we bring this back into um, a way to understand this that becomes digestible. I need to be able to digest what my thoughts are, so I need to be able to find the terms by which I can move from thinking about these things into feeling these things or having a deeper understanding. And one thing that was said by a person last night was we were talking about ego. And of course, when we talk about ego, um, oftentimes we're talking about it in a pejorative, right? We're talking about the ego as being something that's bad or inherently our nemesis, or you know, this thing that needs to be brought into control and or killed completely. Like there's all this kind of martial language around it. But this person who was participating in the discussion contributed this notion that the language that we use, even when we say my ego, is to hold this close ownership over this thing, this thing that we call ego. And this person suggested that if we were to understand ego as an aspect of who I am, an aspect of self, but not something that's necessarily such a dominating force, or something that's so large, but just an aspect, like we would say my hand, or um, we're still using the language of my and the ownership of my hand, when really that's a part of who I am. It's a part of this physical body. Um, but if you cut that off and it were laying, on a table across the room, it would be hard to understand that as being part of your body anymore. That's disembodied. That's a hand. That's your hand. My hand's over there. Um, so in that case, it becomes an aspect of your body. It becomes a small part of the whole. And if we can understand our ego in that way, as an aspect of who we are, then we can get a larger view of all of the different aspects of who we are, all of the different small things that make up this experience. And from there, I was kind of brought into this thought funnel. Everything kept coming back down to this notion of really, how vast am I? How vast are you? How many aspects of us are there? And when we start really looking at this, then all of a sudden the things that feel so big in any moment can take a more comfortable place in our experience if we pull back just a bit to see that they're just an aspect of who we are. It's just a notion, just a part of the experience that we're having. So it gets simplified. It gets simplified into this is just a person having an experience. And I think that that's really good for me as a practice. I'm going to introduce this into my practice, my intentional language practice, and my practice of perspective. That sometimes I have this tendency towards believing that my experience is a really big deal. I have this tendency to believe that what's happening right now is really important. And it's really important that I speak my truth. And it's really important that I be authentic in this moment and tell you how I'm feeling. And generally that's code for I'm I need to throw a little bit of a fit, or I need, and that's in my case. This is not the case for everyone and every. Of course, it is wonderful to be able to speak truth. It is wonderful to be able to get to the essence of who you are, and especially in times when you are being diminished. Uh, Whether it's internally diminishing, who you are in regards to a relationship, or if you're being diminished by another, or by a group, or by a society, or by a cultural standard, to be able to make that stand is huge, and it's a gift that we give when we do step forward and remind the world that we exist. That is important. And there is this thing that happens where we can make our experience of our feelings in the moment the thing. And though we forget that those feelings are oftentimes not actually the feeling, those things that we're thinking and the way that we categorize, name, and display those feelings becomes really based upon um, the way we think about them. And the way we think about things is really secondary to the conversation that's happening between the body and the thinking mind. And so, how do I make this more digestible? For me, it goes like this. I had an experience at some point with an emotional situation that was painful for me and difficult. Okay. I think that's pretty basic. That situation was never actually integrated into my life. I did not learn how this was an important, or this was um, an invitation to heal or to learn and to deepen my relationship. Instead, it felt like something that ostracized me. I created a space to protect myself around those feelings of hurt, because I didn't understand the complexities and the same time the simplicity of what was occurring, right? So I built this huge story around the hurt that I felt, and then I held on to that hurt through the story. So every time that I get hurt again in a similar way, that story comes forward. And a lot of times that story is in the creation of an enemy, uh, someone who is causing you harm, and then yourself as the recipient of the harm. And without being able to integrate that experience as an experience, and to be able to even love, the ability to have awareness of it and experience it, I hold it as um, this ever growing problem. Um, so when that hurt comes again, I'm now reacting in a larger and larger way, subtly, each time. And I'm creating the story of my victimness and this other person's um, um, forcefulness, or this other person's vengeance or violence. Um, and it becomes really centered in who I think I am in that moment. And now I'm triggered into this response. And what's happening is there's a feeling in my body, and it sends a signal to the brain. This is a feeling. My thinking mind gets a hold of that and creates the story for what the feeling is. And then it sends that signal back. This is a crisis. So I start breathing into my chest, mouth breathing. I start getting a little anxiety. Um, and I get a story that's repeating in my head about what this person is doing. Why would they do that to me? Did they intend to do that? They must have intended to do that. And it just spirals into this primary pain that was never integrated, this primary hurt, this wound that's never been able to heal, um, because there's story surrounding that wound is always one of an external enemy. So there's always something to be scared of that's going to create that wound again. Um, but when I can step back just a bit in that moment, then what's happening becomes a lot more clear that these are all just little aspects of an experience. And the chances that this person in my life in that moment is a part of a grand conspiracy to cause you harm, and I know that's a bit hyperbole. But the chance that what's happening here is as big as it feels is very slim. It's very slim. Generally, it's just a couple of miscommunications and some unawareness. And then all of a sudden, I've slipped into this pitfall of a wound inside of myself, this unhealed space. And when it means to be unhealed, it means to be unwhole. So there's something in me that I am not able to recognize as an aspect of who I am. I recognize it as this external force that is causing me harm. So healing is wholeness. We come into wholeness with this understanding that this feeling, this pain, this woundedness is actually a part of my experience. And this is where the ego gets involved in a positive and a helpful way, is to understand that it's an aspect of learning about the way that we engage with the world when we are unaware of what we are doing, and that we are doing it can be painful. And that's really important for me to learn. And then you get to a space where you go, and if we are engaging with the world with awareness, it can still be painful. But awareness brings with it the lack of judgment. When we can become aware on a deeper and larger scale, when we can step back and see all of these things as aspect, then all of a sudden there's no blame, shame, or guilt involved with pain. And it becomes something that we can carry with us. We can carry these things because they're not sitting on my chest. They're not these large, overbearing things. And it becomes easy to forget that. when we get upset and we don't know what to do with that upset, and we don't have not only a language to internally understand what's happening there, we don't even have an ability to understand that it's happening internally. We instantly start to think this is something coming from outside of me and creating this problem for me. Um, but the one thing we do have is a refined, weaponized language of blame. We've refined our ability to point fingers, to blame people, to create isolation and disconnection as a defense mechanism to protect us from the pain that we've never integrated into our lives. The pain we never knew was just an aspect of our day. It's just an aspect, and it's okay. You can carry it. It doesn't mean you have to carry it in silence, and it doesn't mean you have to, um, it's not a cross and a burden to bear. It just becomes another experience this person is having. My person is having this experience, my personhood, myself. And interesting that the one thing that we actually probably need the most in those moments is connection. And it's love and kindness and understanding. And it's the one thing that our actions in those moments make really difficult. We tend to push the people away from us that we really want to call in for closeness. Um, and I behave that way sometimes. When I get hurt, when I get upset, I push people away. I blame, or I attach judgment. But before I even get to the place of attaching judgment onto a person, I'm already attaching judgment onto my experience. This is a bad thing. This thing is bad. This is really bad. This you don't understand how bad this is. And I'm already going down that tunnel where my vision starts to get closed in on this one thing. And here's the thing. It's not very easy to make a bad thing good. It takes a lot of mental gymnastics. It takes a lot of compromise. It takes a lot of um, convincing ourselves of something. But when we can view something not as bad, but maybe as difficult, well, then it's different, because I can learn to do difficult things, and then they become easier. Cooking a meal, playing guitar, learning a second language, um, even maintaining a yoga practice. These things are difficult. Doing meditations every day. This can be difficult, but it can be learned. And when it's learned, it becomes easy. And then it gets to a point where it's just another aspect of my day. It's just another thing I'm doing. I don't have to force myself into this compromised position and muster up all of the willpower I have. I don't have to do any of that. At a certain point, difficult things become easy, and then easy things just become part of what we do. So when I'm experiencing this feeling that something is really bad, I'm upset, I'm angry, I'm feeling isolated, I'm feeling unimportant, I'm feeling alone. If I can remember that this is an aspect of what this experience is, um, and that it's not bad, it's difficult, and I can navigate through this series of emotions that's a relationship, is a discussion between my physical body sensations and my thoughts connected to that, and I can step back for just a moment and I can see the largeness of who I am with all of these different things, then all of a sudden the thing that felt so big as part of my experience now is just another thing. It's just another part of me, and it's okay. I can carry that. That's much smaller now, and I am much larger. And this comes with the practice of remembering who we really are. And who we really are is not defined by the borders of my skin. I am not contained into this 5'10", 230-pound body. That's not the entirety of me. It's not the entirety of you. Who I really am when I close my eyes has no beginning or end in this way. And there's a vast pool to draw from. So this comes from practice, and this is a part of the practice. And that practice is a part of learning how to do difficult things. So let's spend just a moment coming together, finding our meditation posture. And let's just spend a few moments in breath. Whether you're seated on the floor, as I am, on a pillow, mat, or rug, or you're in a chair with your feet flat to the floor, you're on a couch, or at your desk, wherever you are right now, this is a practice of breath. And everything we're going to do in this practice is to facilitate breathing, making it easier. And to do that, we're going to use our bodies to give space. So soften your belly, relax the shoulders, bring the shoulder blades together just slightly in the back, straightening the spine as much as you can, gently lifting the chin. Feel the weight of your body shift and move into a balanced place with the least amount of stress or strain. You may have to adjust, and that's okay. Let's begin breathing in through our nose to the bottom of the belly and release. Just a few intentional breaths, breathing in slowly and gently. And then when you release, exhale slowly and longer than you inhaled. Really try to release that air from the body. Breathe in. And release. In. Find all of the sensations in the body with each breath in and out. Find your rhythm and your flow, and just be with the breath. You might be noticing a shift in the breath, and a feeling in the body may be changing. Check in on your thought body, your emotional body, and your physical body. And then connect the way those things are expressing to your breath. Understand that your breathing is connected to all of these sensations. And taking just a few moments to intentionally shift the breath can contribute to your overall well-being. Finding calm, stillness, and silence inside of yourself is a good thing. It's okay. With your eyes gently closed, notice how vast you are. And love it. Love it. Love how large we are. Love how much room we have to carry all of these experiences. You're okay right now. And when you're ready, you can begin to bring movement back to the body, opening the eyes. See if you can bring that sense of expansiveness into your conscious reality, your shared consciousness right now. Just spend a moment loving yourself, and all of this experience that you get to have. Some of it's very difficult. That's okay. We can do difficult things. And the very pain that I build walls around to isolate myself from others is exactly the shared experience that I have to connect with others. That pain, that wound, that experience, others have that too. And this is, instead of the thing that keeps us apart, can be the very experience that we can share with one another in a way that brings us together. And inevitably, it's just an aspect of who we are. And who we are is just a person having an experience. Just an experience in a person. And it's no big deal. It's no big deal. Thank you so much for joining today. Thanks for coming together for the journey home. I really appreciate this practice, and I really am happy that I'm able to connect in this way and share this practice with you. So if you'd like to reach out and be in contact or share anything about your practice with the rest of us, you can email me at journeyhomemeditation@gmail.com. My name is Michael. You can also leave us a comment on any of the places where you might be finding this. And if you're listening to the audio through Spotify or Audible or Amazon Music, you can leave a comment there as well. Engagement really does help to maintain this podcast, this daily practice. I'd love to hear from you. So thanks so much for being here again. Hariom.